गुड आफ्टरनून। तो आप समझ ही गए होंगे आज का टॉपिक क्या है। द पॉप ऑफ अ शैम्पेन इज एन इंस्टेंटली रिकग्नाइजेबल एंड यूफोरिक साउंड विच रिलेट्स टू सेलिब्रेशन, विच रिलेट्स टू फेस्टिवल्स. So what is this champagne all about, and what is the process, and why is it different from the other wines is what we'll try to understand in this session. Stay with me. So what is champagne? Champagne is the world's leading French sparkling wine, born from centuries of tradition, history, and expertise. What about the name? Champagne belongs to the region called Le Champagne, east of Paris, France, of course. Now, the rules and regulations that govern the making of this sparkling wine are very strict and have to be followed to the T. Let's have a look at it. In 1947, 320 official winemaking villages were brought together. Among them, 3 major commercial sites were bought in. The Rhône, the Épernay and the Aire formed the Golden Triangle, which is the epicenter of champagne production. Here, the rich and the fruity grape was grown by pushing the wine to its extreme limit in this chalky and inhospitable soil. Now, what you see here is the CIVC. So, what is this? This is during the Second World War. A united front was taken by all the champagne producers, and the agricultural minister then of France appointed this person to lead the movement. Now, who was this person? This person was none other than the director of Meunière.Dom, who was Robert Jean de Vogue. He led the movement. During this transition over the period of time as well, during the 20th century, a lot of products were then named Champagne shampoo, Champagne matchbox, Champagne water bottle. In order for this name to be exclusive, there were 67 laws that were passed just to keep the right to use this name only for the sparkling wine. Other than that, what is famous about this place is the UNESCO has given it or announced it as a heritage site. So this also value add-on Le Champagne has got in the history. So how was champagne invented? Champagne was invented by Dom Perignon, as we all know. In the 17th century, he was appointed as a wine cellar master of a newly rebuilt Haute-Villars Abbey. He was known for being a perfectionist. He was known for making white wine with red grapes. And this perfection led to making of champagne as well. Now, we all know the story that he was blind. Let me update you, he was not blind. Because the amount of time he spent in the wine cellar, which was not closer to sunlight, the person was not in the sunlight all the time, he partially was blind because the moment he came into the sunlight, his eyes would stop working. Because he was so used to working in the dark cellars in the Haute-Villars that whenever he came out in the sunlight, it was as good as he was blind. But he was not blind as the textbooks say. Alright, so how did he develop this? He eventually realized that during the autumn season, the cells were active, and during the winter, the cells would subside, or they would lose their function of making yeast and making alcohol and carbon dioxide. Because of this, the secondary fermentation happened after it rested and the spring started again, and the yeast were activated. The bubbles were formed. This led to a strong pressure in the bottles, which often broke the bottles. He went on to develop stronger bottles and corks, and eventually champagne as a wine was invented. In honor of this name, Meunière.Dom also has renowned or given his namesake champagne, which is Meunière.Dom has named this, right? Dom Perignon. So that's for him. So how is champagne made? The process by which champagne can be made is only method Champenoise or method traditional. That's it. No shortcuts, no missing of steps. To the T, everything is followed from the pressing to the bottling. None of the steps are missed. If any of these steps are missed, it is not a champagne. Then it becomes the second option, which we will discuss, which are the different types of champagne. Okay? This delightful bubbly drink is made with 3 grapes, Pinot Noir and Pinot Meunière, which add richness, softness and predominance of flavor, whereas Chardonnay, the element which is white, adds a lot of balance and elegance to the drink. If the champagne is entirely made with black grapes, it is called as Blanc de Noir. If it is entirely made by white, it is called Blanc de Blanc. The champagne grapes are handpicked and then sent to the crusher. Within 12 hours, the pressing is done, where they extract the juice and remove the skin. This first press is called vin de curve. They are then sent to fermenting tanks, where they will rest until springtime at a temperature of 20 degrees centigrade in stainless steel vats. Once the resting is complete, the champagne houses will now do the blending. The 3 grape varietals will be blended together and liqueur de tirage will be added. What is this? Cane sugar plus yeast in old champagne, and they will cover it with a crown cap. That's it. Now here's the magic. The secondary fermentation, which begins at 10 to 12 degrees centigrade, a controlled temperature, for 6 weeks. Every third day, the bottle will shift a little at 45 degrees angle. The remuage or riedling is a traditional method used to clear the wine. The bottles, still horizontally, are taken into a hold wooden frame called the pupitre. This is made up of 2 rectangular boards hinged together to form an inverted V shape. This intensive shifting leads to the bottle becoming vertical and the sediments resting on the cap. The minimum aging for non-vintage and vintage champagne is 1 year and 3 years respectively. However, the maturing period is more likely to be 3 years for non-vintage and 5 years for vintage quality. When required for sale, the bottles, still upright down, are passed along an automated line and the necks are immersed in a freezing liquid of brine for 7 minutes. Disgorgement is the process of removing these sediments, which are frozen into a pallet of ice. And that's it. A little champagne lost by this discharge is replaced by a dosage or solution of cane sugar and older champagne called liqueur d'expédition. The amount of sugar in the dosage will determine the style and relative sweetness of the champagne. The bottles are now sealed with the best quality cork from Portugal or Spain, and wire cages are fixed to hold the cork in place. They may get a little more aging before being dressed, neck foil and label, and ready for consumption. Join me in part 2, where I discuss the types, the styles of champagne and a few accessories which I have come across. Meet you in my next session. Until then, bye-bye.